for joining us as we begin here this evening. Once again, as we mentioned, our thoughts are focused on our brethren in Eretz Yisrael and our soldiers that are in such a dangerous predicament, going into tunnels that could be booby-trapped, as we lost so many brave soldiers because of that. We have them in mind that they should be gesund and victorious. We are sponsored by Shimon Klein, Nishmas Asher Anshelman Yehuda, Gittel Bas Shimon Pinchas, by Irving Fishbaum for his gesund, Issa Ben Rezel, by A.B. Spry, as I said, for all our brave soldiers, and for Issa Zev Ben Yuta. We learned from Aishver, Meir Ben Avigdor Sarah, Avigdor Aye Ben Rivka, and Meir Ben Chaya Sarah, and for my grandson, Hayeled Ben Chava. So we want to welcome in Shimon Klein and Rich Lenner. We wish Refuah Shalema, recovering from orthoscopic shoulder blade surgery. Irving Fishbaum, Bruce Eisenberg, Shalom Fogel, Eddie Chazan, Nachman Chaplin, Mordechai Sultan, Baruch Ian, Dr. Guy, Shimon Deer, Avi Ament, Shelley Zeitlin. How's the article going, Shelley?
It's rough. I just went through it the first time, but I'll send it to you to clean it up.
Okay.
I'll go through it again.
Okay, good. I look forward to it. Stephen Holtzman, Richard Rosenzweig, Naftali Javelin, Aaron Swade, Moshe Lehman, Yitzi Muller, Abe Arbach, Ilya Schutman, David Gestetner, Sandy Grunfeld. Here we have in the Shul Saba, Rebellia Yafi, Avram Schenkman. It's such a pleasure to have you, and Berish Gesserman, David Helfgott on Kol Loshin. As we begin, and Gedalia Engel, of course, as we don't forget tomorrow night, 7:45, Mariv. Bruce, we would appreciate if you commute a little bit. You know, you could open up an office over here, and I'll get you a lot of clients. Tan Rabbanan, as we are holding 7 lines from the bottom of the 7 lines from the bottom of Daf Tes Amud Beis. Tan Rabbanan. Chaimer b'shar mibabar. There is stringencies of shar over the damage of a pit, and chaimer b'bar b'shar. And there are stringencies of the hezek of pit over the axe. Chaimer b'shar mibabar. There are stringencies of shar over bar. Shashar mishalem es hakaifer. A shar amuid that kills a man, you have to pay the value. That's a ransom. There's a machlokes if it's a value of the one who you killed or your ox killed, or your value, but you have to pay a hefty sum of money. And if you're shar gored a evet kanani, there's a kanas of 30 shiklei kasef, 30 shkalim. Nigmar dinoi, and once the shar is condemned, aser bahana, it's forbidden to benefit from it. And it is a mobile damager. It's on the move. This is all untrue by bar, because bar, it says bar v'loy adam. So if adam falls into the bar, you're not chayiv. So there's no chayiv of kaifa, there's no chayiv of a knas, and a bar is not mobile. And if a bar does damage, it doesn't become asur to use the bar. Chaimer mebar b'mishar, and there's a chumrah of bar over shar, as we welcome in Dr. Block and Mo Kushner. Chaimer bebar mibishar, there's a chumrah of bar over shar. Shabar tchilas asiyasei lenezik. A bar, from the get-go, it's a public menace. Umuad mitchilasei, and it is considered to be a menace that's chayiv and nezik shalom from the beginning. Mashen ke mishar, a shar, the first 2 times that it goes, it's only a chatzi nezek, and a shar is not tchilas asiyasei lenezik. As the shar is growing up, it is not from its inception a damager. as we start the top of Daf Yud, Chaymer b'shar mi'be'esh, there's a chumrah of shar over fire, and Chaymer be'esh mi'b'shar, and there's a chumrah of fire over shar. Chaymer b'shar mi'be'esh, there's a chumrah of shar over fire, shar mishalim kaifer, the shar that damages, that kills a human being. If it's a muad, it pays, like we said, the ransom. The chayiv b'shloishim shel evet, and it's chayiv if it kills an evet kanani, the knas of shloishim. Nigmar dino asabana, if it's condemned, it becomes asabana. Masru l'cheresh shaita b'katan, if you hand a bar over to watch to a deaf, mute, an imbecile, and a minor, and it does damage, chayiv. Masha ein came be'esh. All these things are not true with fire. Fire damages a person, then you're not chayiv a kaifer, you're not chayiv shloishim, because the person should have ran away from the fire. And if the person was tied up and you lit him on fire, so you're chayiv misa, and therefore this kam leibim rabine, you're not chayiv the penalty. Similarly, a fire, when it does damage, it doesn't become asabana. And if you give over a fire, we said to a cherishite to be cotton, for sure a gacheles, a coal, and according to one mandiyama, even a fire, you're a potter. Chaymer be'esh mibishar, there's a chumrah of fire over an axe. Sha'esh muedes mitchilasai, a fire you chayiv the first time in ezek shalom. Ma'ashen came bishar, the first two times it's a chasi nezek. Chaymer be'esh mi'bebar, v'chaymer bebar mi'be'esh. There's a chumrah of esh over pit, and there's a chumrah of a pit over fire. Chaymer bebar mi'be'esh, there's a chumrah of a pit over fire. Shetchilas asiyasal l'nezek. Initially, it is a menace. When you dig it in the Rosh Hashanah, right away it becomes a public nuisance. That's not true with a fire. You light a fire on your property, it's not right away a menace. If you give over the bar to a cherishite of a cotton to watch, chayiv. Ma'ashen came be'esh. That's not true with a fire. We said if you give over the coal to the cherishite of a cotton, you're not chayiv. Chaymer be'esh mi'babar. There's a chumrah of fire over the pit. She'esh darka leilach ulahazik. The fire is a mobile menace. Umu'edes lechol bein davar ha'roila bein davar she'ein ha'roila. Now the Gemara is going to say different opinions what it means. One opinion is that the an eish is chayiv whether it's something that you usually burn like wood, or even if it's kalim, if it's utensils. Ma'ashen kein bar, we said it says shar v'loy adam chamar v'loy kalim, that utensils that fall into a bar you're not chayiv. Ma'ashen kein bar. Now, asks the Gemara, v'lisnei chaymer b'shar mi'babar, why don't you left something out. Why don't you say that shar is more stringent than bar? She'ashar chayiv b'yas ha'kelim, a shar that tramples on utensils is chayiv, ma'ashen came b'bar, because we said if kalim fall into a bar, you're not chayiv, because it says chamar v'loy kalim. So the Gemara says, well, how many Rabbi Yehuda did he? This is going according to Rabbi Yehuda that holds that you're chayiv for kalim that fall into a bar. The mechayiv on this kalim b'bar. Oh, so then we have a problem. What does it mean that bar is not? Rabbi Yehuda ema sefer chaymer mebe'esh mebebar she'esh darka leilach lahazik umuad lechol bein davar royala bein davar she'ein royala, and it is muad to damage whether what's fit for it, what's not fit for it. Now remember, we learned what's fit for it was wood, and what's not fit for it is kalim. We said ma'ashen came babar, ma'ashen came babar davar royala ma'ininu. What does it mean? Something that's fit for the wood, for eish, eitzim. Davar she'ein royala ma'iniu, kalim, utensils. So then ma'ashen came babar, which we said that by a bar you're not chayiv in kalim, but if it's going according to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda amrit mechayiv your Rabbi Yehuda al niskei kalim babar. So what does it mean that you're chayiv by eish for both roy and she'ein roy? By bar you're not chayiv she'ein roy. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you are chayiv for kalim in bar. El olam rabbanani, that by bar you're not chayiv for kalim. And really, it could have said chaymer b'shar mi'bar, that shar you're chayiv for kalim, and by bar you're not. V'tana v'shaya. The Tana didn't give a complete list, It's not an exhaustive list. Now, we said the only time we sacrifice an exhaustive list is if we leave out at least two things. So, my shayir the high shayir, what else did it leave out? Says the Gemara, shayir tamun. It left out that chaymer mishar mibe'esh, that for sure you're chayiv if it damages something that's hidden. But by fire, if you burn down a stack of grain and inside was hidden money, you're potter. That's tamun. Or else we could answer L'olam Rabbi Yehuda, that it's going according to Rabbi Yehuda that holds that bar your chayiv in kelim, and that's why it doesn't say chaymer mishar b'bar that by shar you're chayiv in kelim, by bar you're potter, because Rabbi Yehuda holds by bar you're also chayiv in kelim. And what does it mean that by eish you're chayiv for something that's not fit for it, but by bar that by eish you're chayiv both for something that's roi and for something that's ain't roi? What is it coming to include? Lav la'asuyei kelim, it's not coming to include utensils. El la'asuyei lichecha niroi v'sichsecha avonav, where the fire scorches a plowed field, causing you to have to plow it again, or scorches the rock and tarnishes the rock in the landscaping and damages the rock. Now that's something that's not roi for it, and yet you're chayiv. Maskufla Rav Ashi, so Rav Ashi asks, Lisnei chaymer b'bishar mibabar, shashar chayiv b'ishar psulei hamukdashim. This is a very interesting question. It is a very interesting halacha. We said that if a shar gores a shar of hektish, so there's a man niyama that you're potter because it says sharei ehu. But then there's a din of a shar psulei mikdashim. That means that the shar you dedicated to the temple, and then it got a blemish, so it's disqualified. So the din is you could redeem it, and then you could use it, but with restrictions. For example, you can't weigh it in the way you weigh it at the market. You can't sell it at the market. There's certain restrictions. One of the restrictions is if it dies, you can't feed it to the dogs, because it's psulei mukdashim. It has some residual holiness. So the Gemara says, so then chaymer b'shar mibabar, shachshar chayiv b'shar psulei mukdashim. A shar, if your shar gores a shar that was a disqualified kachim, you're chayiv, because that's considered sharei eyu. Masha en came a bar, but if a shar psulei mukdashim falls into the bar, then it's going to be exempt from the tashlumin of bar because of a technicality. Because by bar it says v'ameis yiyaloi, and the mace belongs to him, and that means that you have to be able to use the carcass. And here you can't feed the carcass to the dogs because it's psulei mikdashim. Says the Gemara, if it's going according to Rabbanan, then it's no problem. ID the Shire Hach, since according to Rabbanan, it could have said Chaymer Mishar Mibabar, that by Shar you're chayiv for Kalim, by Bar you're not chayiv for Kalim. So Shire Namiach, so it left this out too. Eli Amrit Rabbi Yehuda, my Shire the high Shire. What does it leave out? Says the Gemara, Dosh Benirai. It leaves out the din that if a shar deliberately smashes somebody's plowed field and does damage that you need to plow it again, you're chayiv to pay. Mashen came babar, there can be no such damage because the bar can't be mobile to damage somebody's plowed field. So the Gemara says, nah, imishim dash benirai lav shiuru, that's not extra because that's covered by the difference that shar is darka lahazik while bar is not darka lahazik. So that's covered. So of course, bar can't thrash somebody's plowed field because it's not dark alazik. Imishim dosh beniroi lav shiurahu. That's not considered a shear. Why? The tanisha came dark leilach alazik. It's a mobile damager. What do you want to ask?
Why does it have to be miskaven, the dosh beniroi? Why can't it be he was just clotting around and he smashed up the guy's field? And Rashi makes a point of also saying this kav on the kach.
I know. It seems to be that if it's regular regel, that wouldn't ruin the plowed field. It would only be if he stamps it. And stamping on it has to be Karen, because that's unusual activity. Now, okay, getting along underway over here on a new week of learning Torah. Two dedication opportunities. First of all, we were looking for somebody to dedicate Toldos, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com, and I had recommitted to try to do 2 chok a week, which is a real big job, but I'm going to try to do that, and I've been given the green light to get dedications for the chok. So we're going to make a very cheap price to dedicate a chok. A chok will be $100 to dedicate a chok. So anybody that's interested in dedicating a chok, 718-916-3100. One day, I hope that chok will be listened to by thousands of people. There is no English chok share except for mine. So 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. Hirsharti b'miksas nizkai. We said that if you make possible part of the damage, you're chayiv for the whole damage. So what's the case? Tan Rabbanan, hirsharti miksas nizkai. If you made possible part of the damage, chavti b'tashlume nizkai, you're responsible for the whole damage, kehechsher kol nizkai, as if you did the whole damage. So Ketzad, what's the case? Oh, very simple. Over here, Avi is looking very guilty. HaChayfer bar Tisha. Avi dug a pit 9 tefachim deep. Now remember, 9 tefachim cannot kill an animal. It has to be a minimum of 10 tefachim deep to kill the animal. So Avi dug the pit 9 tefachim deep. Oba achar, and then, since Marshall is not over here now, so Bruce came. Oba achar, he looks innocent, but watch out. Oba achar, and Bruce came vishlima ila asara, and completed it to 10. Ha achron chayiv. So Bruce is chayiv, and Bruce is chayiv whether the animal got killed or the animal got damaged. So here he didn't do the whole thing. Avi did 9 tefachim. He only did 1 tefach, but he's chayiv as if he did the whole thing. Udaloi Rebbe, not like Rebbe. Rebbe will say that for damages, both Avi and Bruce have to share the responsibility. Let's see it inside. Titania, HaChayfer bar Tisha, Abi digs it 9 tefachim deep, Uba Achav Yishlim al Asar, and Bruce comes and finishes it to 10. Achrein Chayiv. Bruce is Chayiv whether the shor got damaged, whether the shor died. Rebbe Yomer, Achar Achrein Lamisa. Bruce, he made it that it's lethal, because until 10 tefachim it can't kill. So Bruce is Chayiv for the death of the animal. But Avi and Bruce together share l'nizakin. Rapapa says, why do we say that this has to be not like Rebbe? It's talking about where the animal dies, and then l'misa v'divrei hakol. Ikidamre, some put it another way, lema deloy Rebbe, from the fact that it says that only Bruce is chayiv, is that not like Rebbe, that for damages they both have to share in the payment? Amar Papa Lamisa, no, it's talking about where the animal dies, v'divrei akol, that only Bruce is chayiv. So Reb Zera says there's no other cases that we could think that fits this formula of where a person does part and he's chayiv the whole thing. Asks Gemara, Maskevla Rabbi Zera, V'suleka, is there no other case? Va'ika Moser Shayra L'chamisha B'nei Adam, where the shah was given to 5 people, to Shalom, Eddie, Nachman, Mordechai, and Dr. Guy. Upasha by Echad Mehem, and Shalom was neglectful, behizik, and it did damage, chayiv. So you see, although Shalom only did part of the damage, he's chayiv in the whole damage. So the Gemara says, hold everything. Hey Chidami, what's the case? If it needed all 5 to guard it, they guarded it from 5 different doors, and it needed all 5 to guard it, and Shalom didn't guard his door, well, pshita, to you covered, he did the whole thing. He left his door open. Ella, says the Gemara, you know what it's talking about? Ella, Debalav ihu nami minter. Without him, it's guarded. It really didn't need 5 people. Well, in that case, Micah Ovid, then he didn't do anything. So either he did everything, because he didn't guard his door. If he didn't guard his door, so he did everything. If it doesn't need him, then he did nothing. There's a case where he adds fuel to the fire. Right? He adds some more straw on the fire and causes it to damage. So although he didn't make the whole fire, he's chayiv as if he did the whole thing. So again, the Gemara says, hey chidami, as we turn to Daf Yud Amud Beis, it's always nice to turn a page and come closer to a siyum. Says the Gemara, hey chidami, if he didn't add the fuel, it wouldn't have reached the place of damage. So pshita, he did everything. Because before that it wasn't a menace. Ella if it would have gone without him adding it, then he didn't do anything. My COVID. So either way, either he did the whole thing, or he didn't do anything. Maskara Papa Vayika Desanya. Chamisha sheyashva al safsalecha. This is very interesting. 5 people sit on a public bench, v'lo yishivaruha, and they didn't break it. And then Chatzkel, or ba echad v'yashiv alav, Chatzkel sat on it, ushvarai, and he broke it. So the din is, so achron chayiv, that the last one that sits upon it is chayiv. Now, you'll say, well, that's an einus. For Amra Papa, it's Kagain Papa Bar Abba. It's talking about where all the people that sat on the bench were rather corpulent people. It's a nice way of saying it, right? They you know, were a bit heavy, and therefore they can't say that it was an einus, because the public bench was made for people that were within the bell curve, not for people that were, you know, pleasantly plump. So here we have that he added to the damage. He was the straw that broke the camel's back, and that should be a case where he did part of the damage and he's chayav for the whole damage. So the Gemara says, okay, let's analyze the situation. Hey chidami, if he didn't sit on the bench, it wouldn't have broke. So pshita, his sitting on the bench caused it to break. Ella de balav iyonami yitmar. It would have broke even without him sitting down. So then why is he chayiv? Then my covet. Why should we say that if it would have broke even when without him sitting down, why should he be the only one that's chayiv? So the Gemara says, so then what's the chiddush? This is a Mishnah. Tell me what the chiddush of the Mishnah is. Saif masnisa heicha mitrasa. So how do you explain the Mishnah? What's the chiddush over here? Says in late tzvicha the belav you have a mitba betray shay. Without him, it would have lasted for 2 hours. V'hashta itper b'chodesha. When he sat down, it broke in 1 hour. Now they tell him, if you didn't sit down, we would have gotten up before 2 hours. So the Amrei lay Eloi Atav Yasvinan, the Eloi At, if you wouldn't have sit down, have a Yasvinan Tvei Persa, we would have sat a little bit longer and V'kaimin, and we would have got up. Right? We know it had a limit of 2 hours, it's like it says, don't park for longer than 2 hours, We knew, and you sitting down made it break earlier. So, yeah. So why can't he tell them, Ilav atun b'didi lo yave mitper? If you weren't with me, it wouldn't have broken. You can't give me all the blame. If you weren't with me, it wouldn't have broke. So get up. Get up, you'll say, we would have got up. If you're not there, it wouldn't break. So get up. Says the Gemara, what he did is he came and he leaned on them. And when he leaned on them, they couldn't get up. He came and he leaned on them, and he blocked them from getting up. So the Gemara says, so then it broke mamish because of him. What's the chiddush? Pshita says, I might think that since he didn't sit actually on the bench, he only leaned, it's only koichai. And maybe you're not chayiv only for koichai. Mao the same a koichai lav kegufay dami. It was his force. And you're not chayiv just for your force if he didn't actually sit down on the bench. Kamash malon the koichai kegufay dami. The koleicha the gufay taver, if it would have broke with his body, koichai nami taver. He's also responsible for his force causing it to break. So the Gemara is really persistent over here. Is there yet no other case of where a person does a portion and it's considered like the whole thing? V'suleka? Is there no other case? V'ika hadesanya. There's the case of what we learned in the Brisa. Hikuhu asora b'nei adam be'eser maklas. 10 people beat someone with 10 staffs in their hand. This is a Chatzkel really got a beating. I mean, Rich took off his sling and sheesh, unbelievable. I'm telling you, the guy finally gets a little strength and he really... So 10 people beat somebody with 10 clubs. Bein b'basachas, whether they do it at one time, bein b'ze'achazeh, or one after another, umeis, and he dies, kulan peturim. Now this is a big sugya. This is a big sugya in Sanhedrin. Why are they all potter? But they're all potter. Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseiraimer b'ze'achazeh, if they do it one after another, then the last person ushered in his death, and because he ushered in his death, he brought quicker his death. So here he only did part of it; the other 9 contributed. So he only did part. And he's chayiv for the whole thing. He's the one that gets the capital punishment. So Gemara says, you're right. But piktala like kamari, we're not talking about death. We're only talking about damages. Viba yisema, but plukta like kamari. This is only Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira's opinion. And we're not talking about a quarrel. Says, but we did talk about a quarrel. If you remember, we said that the case of damages, we said that when Avi did 9 tvachim, and Bruce did the 10th tefach, and Bruce did the 10th tefach, and Bruce did the 10th tefach, we said that according to Rebbe, if it's damages, you're chayiv both. But according to Rabbanan, only Bruce is chayiv. So you see, we ruled like the Rabbanan and not like Rebbe. So you see, we're talking about a plukta. V'akimna d'loike Rebbe says that's okay, because where we go like the majority, that will say a ruling. But to go over here like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, who's the minority, that we won't do. D'loike Rebbe u'k'Rabbanan mukminan. Not like Rebbe, but rather like the majority, that will include. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, the individual opinion, and not like the majority, that loy makminan, that we won't count. We won't count as a case. Now, chavti b'tashlumei niskai, you become responsible for the payment of the nezek. Chavti b'niskai loy kitani. It doesn't say you become responsible for the damages. Ela b'tashlumei niskai, but rather to complete the damages. You don't have to pay for the whole thing, rather only to complete it. So what does that mean? So very interesting. If my shar gores Shelley's shar, and it does damage, Shelley can't give me the carcass and say pay me for everything. All I have to do is pay for the difference between the value when it was alive and the value of the carcass. Shelley has to bother selling the carcass. Shelley wants to say, look, you made this mess over here. Your shark killed my animal. Here's the carcass. Pay me the value of the animal. I want to be busy now selling the nevela for dog meat to goyim. So that's what we learn. We learn that I'm only chayiv to complete it. Shelley has to worry about the corpse. As the Gemara says, Tanin Allah, the Tanur Rabbanan, Tashlumei Nezek. I only have to complete it. Malamit Shabolim Mitaplim Benavela. Shelley has the trouble with the carcass. Minati Mili. How do I know this? Amar Rebbe Amid, Amar Krab, Makan Nefesh Behema, Yishal Mena. If somebody strikes the soul of an animal, he has to complete it. Al Tikre Yishal Mena to pay, Eliyashmli Mena. He only has to complete it. In other words, Shelley has to take care of the carcass. I have to pay the difference between the value of the live animal and the carcass. Rav Kana has a different source. Im Toref Yitoref. Let's say I was a Shomer Socher, a paid watchman, and the animal got torn up by another animal in the field. It was an oinus. Yevi'eyu aid, I bring a witness, and then Atrefelo Yishalem. For the fact that it got torn up, I don't pay because it's an oinus. But we darshan that Hatrefa lo Yishalem, meaning ad hatrefa. I only have to pay up to the animal that was torn up, but the carcass I don't have to pay. Ad trefa yishalim, but trefa atzma for the carcass lo yishalim. Chizkiah mehacha. Chizkiah has another source. V'ameis yiyalai, and the dead, the carcass is Shelley's lanizik. V'chein tana de Chizkiah v'ameis yiyalai lanizik. So the Gemara says maybe it doesn't mean that. Maybe if I do damage to Shelley's animal, v'ameis yiyalai means I have to take the mace. Says the Gemara, the atayim lanizik ayin ela lamazik. Amrit loy kachoya. No, that can't be pshat. My loy kachoya. What do you mean that can't be pshat? Amr Abai yisol kedaitim nevela de mazikavi. If I have to take the corpse and reimburse Shelley for the whole thing, then lichtav rachman ashar tachashar v'lishtek. Let's just say an axe for an axe. V'ameisi aloi lamali, it doesn't have to say that. It's axe for an axe, so that means I have to pay for the whole thing. Shmami, no, when it says Rameis Yalai, that means the burden of the carcass remains on the one who is damaged. Now we have three sources, so we knew this was coming. Those that are used to the style of the Gemara knew this was coming. Why do we need three sources to tell us the same law? So says the Gemara, as it's good to have Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg together with Bruce, Yeshua Shmuel, and Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg's little son, she grew up to be a big Talmid Chacham. Look at Bruce. Bruce, you see what happens? When you come to a shir, you get to see your grandson. Bruce, we accept you here the next 100 nights. Well, it'll be accepted even if you come on Zoom. You don't have to travel to come to Marav over here. Only sometimes. So anyway, says the Gemara, Utsricha. So what do we have? Three sources. We have, it says, Yishalmena, which we said that Yashlimu, you complete it. We said Ad Treifa, until the Treifa, but the Treifa you don't have to pay. And we have Ameis Yaloi. So why do we need three drushes? So it says the Gemara, Tzricha. That it's the responsibility of the victim. Now this is talking about an odom that damages an animal. That's Mishum D'Lo Shchicha. Humans don't usually damage animals. You pick a fight, you're not picking a fight with an animal. Aval Treifa the Shchicha, but where an animal attacks another animal, that's common. Maybe a malay, maybe there we put the onus on the mazik to pay for the carcass. Tzricha. V'yashmin and treifa, where the animal got torn, that's mishum memela. That's because it happened along the way. It's not something that the owner wanted to happen. But if the human damages it, avamaka behema to be a dime, that a human did it expressly, maybe over there we put the onus on the mazik. The ashminan hani tarte mishum d'lo shchicha. It's not common for a human to do damage. Va mishum d'memela, and this happened along the way. Avav ameis yaloi, which is talking about a sharamuid, where sharamuid is, we expect it to do damage. It's prone to do damage. The shchicha will be a dime, and that's considered an express activity because since it's a muid, if you didn't watch it properly, it's as if you let it go out and do damage. It's considered direct. I might think you're chai. That's mishum d'mamayin. It's still a damage of your property. The mamayna come out. But by a human, by maka behema, where the human does the damage, I might think that you're responsible. You have to take care of the carcass. Tzricha, it needs to say all the cases. Now, almost to the finish line, Rabbi Isai. And it's really nice to have everybody here. We are missing Mark and Marshall and a whole host of others. We really gotta get people to come more consistently. Says the Gemara, Amalei Rav Kahana, Amalei Rav Kahana l'Rav, el time of the kosav Rachman of Ameis Yaloi, holav hachi, if not have amina nevela demazikavya, that I should take the carcass from Shelley and be responsible to replace it? Why? Remember we said I could pay him with any shava kesef. So if I had a bunch of carcasses, I could pay him with carcasses. So why should I take the carcass that's by him? I could pay him with carcasses. I could pay him with paper clips. I could pay him with bran. Anything that's shava kesef. So if I had a bunch of carcasses that's worth dog meat, I could pay him with carcasses. And that's the Gemara's question. If I had many carcasses, Yovle, Da'amar Yoshiv, it says Yoshiv Kesef L'Ba'olav, L'Rabbi Shava Kesef, that I could pay anything of value. Va'afilu subin, even bran, do I have to take his carcass and trade it in the market? Why should I have to do that? I could pay him with a bunch of carcasses. Says the Gemara, the Chiddush is over here that if I did damage to Shelley's animal, and before we went to court, the carcass deteriorated, I'm not chayiv for that deterioration. I'm chayiv only for the value that it was at the time of the damage. That if the carcass deteriorates from the time of the damage till the time of Hamad B'Din, of the court case, for that deterioration, I'm not responsible. Now tomorrow, the Gemara is going to look into that. Maybe this is not a unanimous halacha, but we'll learn that tomorrow. Right now, we're going to go to the Mishnah Yomis.